All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Thanks for being here. Thank you for joining us as we announce the release of California's Armed and Prohibited Persons System, or APPS, 2024 report. Here's the report. We do this every year. This is the report for 2024, and I will get into some of the important takeaways and data points from this report. We want to highlight the major successes that we had last year in taking guns away from individuals who are no longer legally permitted to have them. Our APPS system was first in the nation at the time. Others have replicated it across the country, thankfully. It identifies all the people that we know have a firearm and also cross-lists those who are prohibited from having one. So we can identify who may well have a firearm but shouldn't and remove it from their hands before someone can get hurt, enhancing public safety in the process. First, I want to express my gratitude to all of the crime analysts, the special agents, supervisors, and public servants in DOJ's Bureau of Firearms who lead this important work. I also want to thank the local law enforcement officers across the state who are our partners in this work. When we work with local law enforcement, we're able to provide a force multiplier and get more done, remove more people from the APPS list so that we know that there's more safety throughout our community. So we appreciate the partnership and the collaboration. All of these folks are brave people charged with getting guns off our streets and out of the hands of dangerous individuals. This is hard work. This is grinding work, going from door to door, not knowing what's behind it, who's behind it, and what weapon they might have access to, but it's important work. Our officers, our law enforcement officers, don't do it for the recognition. They do it because they are mission-driven, committed to public safety. They care deeply about protecting lives, even if that means putting theirs on the line. And for that, I thank them for keeping the peace and enhancing public safety. We're here today because public safety is job number 1, number 2, and number 3 here at the California DOJ. APPS is a critical, first-of-its-kind tool designed to identify and recover firearms that, though originally legally purchased, are owned by people who have now become prohibited from having a gun. This might be because they've been convicted of a felony or a violent misdemeanor. They're now subject to a domestic violence or other restraining order, or they've experienced a serious mental health crisis. Those are the 3 major buckets for prohibition. Some individuals are prohibited for more than one of these reasons, multiple reasons. Our APPS enforcement team, in partnership with local law enforcement, uses this system to cross-reference firearm owners daily against criminal history records, mental health records, and restraining orders, so that we can step in and remove guns from individuals who can no longer own or possess them. The goal is simple: to protect our communities by ensuring that illegally armed individuals are identified and that they are safely disarmed as soon as possible. And I'm proud to report that due to the hard work of our special agents and law enforcement partners, we're making great strides. In a typical shift, our agents are out in the field. They're knocking on doors. They're recovering dangerous firearms from people who may pose a danger to themselves or to others. Last year, we made 25,500 contacts to APPS subjects. Those are doors knocked, people interacted with. That matches our record high in the California Department of Justice all time from 2023. So last 2023, 2024, we are maintaining record high levels of contacts when it comes to APPS enforcement. 9,559 individuals were removed from our APPS list, and about 4,000 of those removals were the result of our combined enforcement efforts, meaning local law enforcement agencies are working with us to get illicit weapons off of our streets. That's good work. That's important work. That's collaborative work. Well, I'm incredibly proud of the strides we've made. We have more work to do. Despite our incredible efforts, additions to our APPS database outpaced the removals from the APPS database, with nearly 2,500 prohibited persons added. That's a function of more convictions, more protective orders being issued. So all good things in the sense that we are identifying people who need to have their guns removed and know that we can do that and increase safety in the process. But there is definitely more work to do. These additions also mean that California's nation-leading laws to protect people from gun violence, including gun violence restraining orders, that they're being utilized, which is important. That's why they're there. So the tools that we are using that we know are data-driven, evidence-based, that keep people safe, they're being used. And as a result, more people are being added to the apps list. Last year, DOJ agents matched our 2023 numbers in closing more cases than past years. All told, we investigated approximately 8,500 individuals who are identified as armed and prohibited persons. We recovered 1,520 firearms through our app's operations and seizures. The firearms you see before you are examples of some of the firearms that we confiscated during our app's operations throughout the state of California. So they're there for you to observe. And while we can't know exactly how many ghost guns are in people's hands because they're not registered, that's the whole point of being a ghost gun, apps cases have resulted in important recoveries. The recovery of 39 ghost guns last year. Ghost guns pose an enormous threat to public safety, and addressing this threat is one of my top priorities here at the California DOJ. So we've got to remain diligent. Every year, more people become illegally armed. But we can't do it alone. Our law enforcement partnerships are integral to this work. Here at DOJ, we're guided by facts. We're guided by data. While the app system continues to evolve, we're seeing momentum that clearly translates to lives saved and communities shielded from tragedy related to gun violence. Our apps program isn't the only way. We're ensuring that people who have proven they aren't fit to have a firearm don't have one. At California DOJ, our approach to ending gun violence is multi-pronged. We're on the ground in our communities. Last year, we held a series of 5 Office of Gun Violence Prevention roundtable events across the state to bring community organizations together to uplift the power and potency of gun violence prevention and intervention efforts, to plan for the future, identify ways we can work more closely together to enhance public safety in the process. We're working with members of the state legislature, advocating for policies and legislation that will curb the presence of illicit guns in our neighborhoods. We're advocating for the accessibility of gun violence data and research. The more information we have, the more data and evidence that we have, the better we can make our work to keep the public safe. And we're promoting investments in victim services, mental health and prevention programs. We're also in court defending California's common sense gun laws to make sure they deliver on their promise to keep people safe from gun violence. We've made great strides in California to eradicate the epidemic of gun violence. It's sort of the Swiss cheese approach. Not one of these approaches is a cure-all, is a panacea, will prevent all gun violence, but together, layered with one another, they prevent a very strong shield against gun violence for Californians. If the gun death rate in the rest of the U.S. matched California's over the last decade, we could have prevented nearly 140,000 gun deaths nationwide. 140,000 brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, mothers and fathers would be with us today if others in the nation had the same laws and approaches that California has in one decade alone. It's why I'm committed to supporting our apps team and to making this program even stronger. One way we can strengthen this program is by making sure firearms are taken from individuals at or shortly after their conviction, after they are prohibited. We call that relinquishment. The closer in time you can remove the gun from an individual to the time they are ineligible to have it, the better. The more time they have a gun when they're not supposed to, the higher the threat to public safety. So promoting more successful and effective relinquishment efforts will be good for overall public safety in California. About 60% of individuals in our app system are prohibited because of a criminal conviction, by far the biggest single category. This means they stand in court. This means they're convicted of a crime. And it also means that no one immediately takes away their firearm. We need to continue working to remove those firearms immediately upon their conviction. We should also build on recent progress to immediately remove firearms from individuals who are subject to a firearm prohibiting restraining order. There's a whole variety of restraining orders. We did a whole report on this a few months back. Domestic violence restraining orders, workplace harassment orders, gun violence restraining orders, to name a few. As soon as someone has a restraining order issued, the gun should be removed. That should be the gold standard and what we should work toward. And investing in the modernization of the APPS database and the California Restraining and Protective Order System would expand our capabilities to track critical data and help deliver better results. And we're in process now working to modernize our data system and our database. Finally, it's important that we continue to work with local law enforcement to ensure a more coordinated effort. The past few years, we've talked about the need for local law enforcement agencies and the courts to increase their efforts to remove firearms closer to the time that an individual is no longer legally allowed to own one. And I'm happy to report that today our data suggests that the message was received. Last year, we saw an 18% increase in removals due to the combined efforts, to the efforts of Cal DOJ working with local law enforcement. So that's good news and another positive sign within the report that we're presenting to you today. We're especially grateful that some courts and law enforcement agencies have launched new coordinated partnerships and task forces focused specifically on APPS firearm relinquishment efforts. And I want to lift up and shout out the Ventura County Sheriff's Department and Police Department, for example, who, using a gun violence reduction program grant, established their own program to investigate APPS cases. That's welcome. That's good progress. That's forward momentum to help remove more individuals from the APPS database and make Californians safer. Their efforts were so successful that we created a joint task force to scale the work, to amplify the work, to cover more ground. Since last August, we've conducted 56 APPS-related investigations together. And this is just one highlight from many life-saving collaborations with our law enforcement partners last year. I want to acknowledge the difficult budget year that we're in. Can't ignore it. These recommendations are looking toward the long-term future. This isn't just about investing in APPS, it's about investing in our communities and our public safety. We'll never know the exact number of shootings we've prevented or lives we've saved. It's always hard to measure what you prevent, but we do know that our efforts are critical, and we know that they're making a real difference. We know they are because we know what happens when there are illicit weapons on our streets. Families are torn apart, communities are harmed by shootings involving illegal guns that don't make the headlines. So I want to thank again our team for this important work. We're pleased to present to you another annual APPS report full of data and guidance, a lot of it showing the important success and progress we're making, also showing how we can do even more and be even better in this work. And I want to take a brief moment to acknowledge individuals from my team for their work to address this crisis, including Chief Stephen Woolery, Assistant Chief Ray Diaz, Allison Mendoza, Peter Wold, Jesus Gutierrez, Ari Freilich at our Office of Gun Violence Prevention, Daniel Harmon, Spencer Douglas, and Alper Balut. Because of our APPS program, more guns are off our streets and out of dangerous hands. That's the bottom line. More schools, places of worship, dance studios, workplaces, and neighborhoods are safe. It's indisputable, and we will keep at it until that isn't even a question, because it shouldn't be. All these places should be safe all the time. We'll keep working towards that. Thank you, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.